Okay, so this is going to be a recording of Chapter 10, Online Content and Media. And this is related to your first case bundle, which talks about different business models for digital content. Now, basically, the chapter starts with a discussion on what exactly is new in the online content and media in the last 2 years or so. So most of the stuff that is new is basically all of these various media giants moving towards creating their own content. It includes Amazon, which actually is a grocery store, but is now creating its own content. A lot of TV series and TV programs through Amazon Prime. We already talked about this in our case bundle 1, and there's a whole case study dedicated to it. Google through YouTube and various platforms of its YouTube doing this. Netflix, which of course creates a lot of its own content and has been very popular recently. Hulu, another online based content provider that provides TV shows. Several other TV channels that are usually common: CBS, ABC, HBO. All of these are moving towards online content creation as well as online content delivery. So a lot of this is happening, and this is for the US industry, but of course this is happening in Pakistan as well. We've got other services available in Pakistan, for instance ICFlix and iFlix, and even Netflix, through which now in Pakistan we're not talking about Pakistani dramas being shown and being produced in conjunction with Netflix, and one of the first few Pakistani dramas is going to be shown probably in 2018, which is this year. So let's see how this happens. So if you look at figure 10.1, it talks about how the annual media consumption is changing. So digital media consumption has been on the rise quite a bit. So the number of hours that people spend on online media consumption through mobile phones is tremendously high. It's about 1,040 hours per year. And on average, so this is again for America, but still this is a huge number. 796 hours per year through desktops, and in others it's 190, as opposed to TV, which is only 1497. So the total of digital media consumption every year is about 2081 hours on an average, as opposed to 1497 on television. Now I keep telling people that this is going to keep on changing, because the way that people used to consume media on television is going to change. Television in itself is something that is changing. Most of the stuff that we watch on television is either coming in through different channels, different ways. And when I say channels, I mean not the TV channels, but rather through different media, devices. We tend to download stuff and stream stuff directly to our television. So we are watching less TV on TV than we once used to. And this is going to keep on changing. And falling more into the category of digital content consumption. So there's a lot of change, and there's this heading on page 657 talking about internet and traditional media, and the subtitle is cannibalization versus complementarity. The idea is that there's a lot of change happening. The one way you would see is that a lot of cannibalization has happened, in the sense that a lot of people are watching this online. They're watching on websites, on tablets, on phones, and downloading it instead of actually watching it on traditional media. But there's a complementary effect to it. A lot of people actually prefer watching it on both platforms, or watching it at convenience. So we've got smart TVs which have internet access, so people are mixing and matching, and the overall pattern is that physical products like CDs and DVDs are slowly being replaced by the digital versions of the media on computers and tablets and even smartphones, and especially because of the rise of various streaming services. So the media revenues, if you look at the 10.2 figure, you'll notice that television still has 27% of the revenues, while a lot of the revenues are divided elsewhere in other services. For instance, the home videos and the internet and media and recorded music and the cinemas, books, magazines, a lot of it. So there's a lot of consumption, a lot of creation of new content. Now there are three basic revenue models for digital content delivery, and we've talked about them in one form or another when we were talking about case bundle 1, which had these 4 categories, namely being buy a paper download, independent of supply technology, paper download, dependent on supply technology, flat rate or subscription based, and of course the fourth one being a super distribution model, which is commission based. So and of course there's another one which is advertising or free based, which is something that case does not talk about, but this chapter does. So there are several categories, and each one of them has this example. The book calls them these 3 categories with different names. It says subscription, which is again the same as flat rate. This is a la carte, or which is basically pay per download, or pay for each piece of content that you get, and of course advertising support, which is, in other words, the content will be absolutely free, but you end up having to see ads, which is how regular television works as well. And anyways, so let's talk about the online content consumption. So the percentage of internet users users has been on the rise, and with respect to online video. So if you look at figure 10.3, you see that 81% of people who are internet users end up watching online video. 67% read newspapers, and there's online radio, and there's mobile phones and games, and online TV shows is still 62%, quite a lot of numbers. So looking at it, you realize that there's a lot of consumption of online content, a lot of it. So people are enjoying it. So then comes the argument of free or fee. What is the attitude of people paying for content and the tolerance for advertising? As we mentioned earlier in other audio recordings about advertisements, as long as an advertisement is relevant, people would be okay with it. But there's only so much that people can be. And of course, there's a balance. There's a balance that people need to find, that people are trying to find when they are watching something for free. So obviously, if you're going to watch something for free, you will have to pay through ads. And that's what happens with, say, places like YouTube. Now, the interesting thing is, people are realizing that they don't tolerate ads for every kind of show, or if the ads are excessive, they are not going to like it. In Pakistan, I've been talking about the fact that our industry is shifting. There was a time that the Pakistani dramas that you see on television would get illegally uploaded through various YouTube channels, that were not owned by the TV channels themselves. Now, however, it's changed. Now you notice that the dramas that show up on television, when they're shown on our television networks, they end up get uploaded to the YouTube channels of that very same TV channel within half an hour of it being shown on the television itself directly. And not only that, they make sure that the listings and the episodes and the playlists are well maintained. The schedules are shown in the cover arts of those YouTube channels. So my prediction is that our industry too, like the American industry, is shifting. The American industry has been shifting in a similar way, where a lot of the TV networks, as they're called, as opposed to the cable TV networks, are now shifting towards the online model. You got CBS Now for the CBS channel. There's an online content provider for HBO called HBO Go. There's several other such examples. So notice that similar to the American industry shifting from a freemium model, where the TV channels end up showing you content by being supported by ads, towards a more subscription-based model where you have to pay a monthly fee, but you don't have to suffer through ads. So this is a balance that people are finding. So they are expensive, without a doubt, they're expensive, but this is happening. Then, of course, it talks about digital rights management in walled gardens. Digital rights management is something that we've discussed in length in our very first case bundle. And this is exactly why I've been iterating multiple times that these chapters are a companion to those case studies. Anyways, DRM is basically the technical and legal ways and entire frameworks through which you protect digital content from being illegally copied, from being stolen, and being distributed without without permission. Understand that no amount of DRM can prevent this from happening. The only way you can prevent people from actually doing this is by giving them something online in a legal manner that they cannot have offline. You need to create walled gardens for them, in the sense that a walled garden, again, is the methodology of giving content only to paying customers. You're restricting your content by only being able to access it through a platform. For instance, in the case of Amazon Prime, if you're an Amazon Prime member, only then you can watch those TV shows. If you're a Netflix monthly payer or a subscription payer, only then can you use the Netflix app or the Netflix website. You can log in, then you can access all the content there. Same goes for Apple Music, same goes for Google's various subscription services, which includes YouTube Red and other subscription services. A walled garden, as the name implies, means that if you are paying, only then you'll be allowed to be inside that garden. But understand that no matter what level of DRM you use, whether hardware or software or a mix of the two, you cannot possibly actually get people to pay for it unless you give something really useful for them. So understand that there are various ways in which they keep on catching them, keep on stopping people, but people keep on finding ways to go around it. So you'll find several torrent sites and various P2P networks that still have all of that content available. You can download it illegally, and that is all possible still, but only when you give them something in return. We've talked about how Amazon does this by creating a whole ecosystem through their Kindle devices, through their their audiobook business, which is audible.com, and its ability to be connected with the ebook, where if you're reading a particular ebook, you can quickly switch to the audiobook and it will start right where you left it while you were reading it without any issue. And all of this is synchronized and backed up in the cloud storage of the Kindle app. So no matter which device you use in the world, as long as you're signing in, you can access your material that you've already bought and paid for. The same is true for Apple. The same is true for Google services. So as long as you give them something, I've always been giving an example when it comes to the online gaming industry of Steam, which is an online gaming store, where if you buy a particular game on Steam, it's available to you. You can download it as many times as you like from wherever in the world. But here's the catch. No matter how many DRM methodologies you have, people will still pirate software. They still pirate games. But the one reason they won't is if you tell them that the only way they can play with other people is to play online, and that too through your servers, which are free of cost. But in order to compete and play with other people, they will need to buy the legitimate versions. The same is true for softwares, for Windows related and other related software, where the updates would only happen, and those updates become important if you're running a business. The updates to those softwares will only happen if you are a paying customer of those softwares, and are connected to their servers. Only then will the updates happen. So there are various ways in order to convince people to pay for something. Remember, DRM is not the solution. DRM will never convince people to actually and force them to actually buy it. So if you look at the media industry itself and its structure, it's been changing over time. There's been a technology convergence, which we talked about, where a lot of existing media platforms have come together into a single platform. Say, for instance, the technological convergence can be seen in the smartphones, in the Android smartphones, and how the telephones and print and music and videos and all of them have come together. This is also being discussed in the first case bundle. This is exactly why I can keep on saying that this particular chapter is connected to your first chapter, to your first case bundle. Then there's content convergence, in the sense that the way that it's designed and produced and distributed. This is what was being talked about in the music case study in the first case bundle, where it says that slowly and gradually you'll find a lot of all of this content being created by the same people who are also distributing it, and it is no longer something that is divided amongst only a handful of people or a handful of developers or creators of those devices. So Apple Music has changed the music industry, while the books industry has just been similarly revolutionized by how Amazon deals with these things. So if you look at figure 10.5, it tells you how it's happened. So this is a nice review of how it's happened. There's a lot of media migration that has happened in the 1995. While publishers used to put up brochures on the web, then books get converted into PDF. This is how media got integrated, got changed into electronic formats. Then the book became an interactive ebook that could be printed and could be read through an app, through various devices, for instance ebook readers. And then it became much more matured, in the sense that there were standardized formats and several sellers of the same books. So this is how the industry has changed in various ways. The industry convergence has been because of a lot of these businesses, a lot of these large businesses coming together and becoming a single company. In a lot of these cases, many of these publishing houses and many of these media content creators have come together and have signed up a lot of contracts and partnerships with the media giants such as Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and even Microsoft. And similarly, a lot of these TV channels have done this. For instance, CBS, which is an incorporation that creates movies and television contents, also produces television shows for several other platforms such as Netflix, which is an online streaming service. The same is true for Amazon. The same is true for YouTube. The same is true for HBO, which is also a channel. Stars, Showtime, a lot of this. And in many cases, a lot of tech companies have been acquired by larger telecom companies. For instance, the purchase of Yahoo by Verizon. So a lot of these, in a lot of these cases, you see a change. The online publishing industry is what this chapter talks about later, which is in 10.2. The online publishing industry has changed quite a bit, and we've talked about it in the Amazon case study, and we've talked about it several times when we talk about Google Books and stuff. Newspapers have started to become digital. A lot of the magazines and newspapers that we used to read physically prefer to be online. And there are various models that they use. Some of them are free of cost. Some of them are advertising supported. Others require you to pay a monthly subscription fee. Some give you some of the articles for free. For instance, Washington Post will give you some of these, for some of its articles for free, when for others you'll have to pay. In some cases, it's going to be completely free, for instance, like Dawn, but supported by ads. In many cases, you will be able to read only if you are paying a certain amount on a monthly fee, which is like Wall Street Journal. The publishing industry has also changed in the sense that a lot of the books that got used to be published, where the publishers used to have control and would pay lower royalties, now are forced to pay a little more royalties. Plus, a lot of these retailers who sell these books have created their own, on-demand printing. For instance, Amazon's Create Space on-demand printing service, which is talked about in the Amazon case study. So this is changing. So there's a lot of things like that happening. A lot of articles are now read because of social networks. So if you look at how newspapers used to be earlier, you notice that there was a lot of physical printing of newspapers. However, now there's a lot more online versions. The entire encyclopedia industry completely disappearing almost ever since Wikipedia happened is another example of the same thing. So from print centric, this model of newspapers and online article publishing has shifted to digital first, and now you'll notice a lot of websites that provide news, which includes a lot of companies such as Vox Media and several others, TechCrunch, even two Pakistani websites like Pro Pakistani Tech Juice, several others have now focused to an online only model. So if you go to this page number 617, look at figure 10.8, you notice how many of these big short newspaper names have started to get online visitors. New York Times, for instance, has about 43 million online visitors on a monthly basis. Washington Post has about 40 million. USA Today has 34 million. Los Angeles Times 21 million. New York Post 19 million, while the Wall Street Journal is about 17 million. So that shows, even though those are numbers for the US industry only, that shows how many people have now shifted more towards the online platform. And as new apps which actually aggregate news from different sources come into play, like Flipboard and Google Newsstand and even Apple News, these will become more and more common. So these newspapers realize that the cost of producing print newspapers is far too much as opposed to actually going online. So the challenge is the digital ad revenue. So how much can these newspapers actually earn through the ads? So print only, is something. By the way, sorry, this is figure 10.9, which shows how many people only read in the print format. So 51% still do, but people have now shifted towards other platforms. So print and web is about 14%, where print and web is 11%. Print and web through mobile is 14%, and just for print and web is about 11% through desktops. Web and mobile is about 7%, but this number is going to improve quite a bit as people are going to change. The strength is it's always about the content. So people will continue to buy newspapers and pay for news online as long as the content that they're getting is good. It doesn't matter if it's in physical form or not, as long as the content is really good. So this is an important area. Plus, how do people, and this is figure 10.10, how exactly do these newspapers end up having people on their website? So most of them actually come through directly to those websites. But another area is search engines. So a lot of people actually search for news on search engines and then end up on these newspaper websites. And again, this number is going to increase over time as more and more of these websites come in. Another area people arrive from is from social networks. More specifically, when I say social networks, I mean Facebook. But the challenge will always be for these online newspaper sites is to finding the right kind of revenue model. So as I said earlier, they could either be subscription based, where you pay a certain amount to access that online newspaper. That's where they could pay. That's where they could access it. They could have a metered subscription where you only get to have access to a certain number of articles for free and you have to pay for others, or you are limited by the number of articles that you can read even after paying a subscription fee in a particular month, or you have to give them extra money for those extra articles. And of course, the challenge is the growth of purely digital competitors. So a lot of websites have jumped in that are completely online only. So a lot of these news sites have been online only. They've always been online. They were never physical. So there's Huffington Post, there's BuzzFeed, there's Flipboard, as I mentioned, an app and a service that brings in a lot of news from several other places. Vox Media, which also owns The Verge, which is a very famous tech blog. There's Reddit, which are basically message boards. There's Vice, which was a magazine. But all of these are online only. So the competition is going to be between those newspapers that are strong, that have strong brand awareness because they were physical and have now moved to online, and in competition with websites that were always online or started their news business online only. So then figure 10.11 shows the unique visitors on these online only news websites. Huffington Post, for instance, at 43%. Recall again that this is directly in equivalency to New York Times, which also has 43%. Washington Post has 40%. USA Today has 34%. While if you look at the online onlys, CNET.com has 35%, while Business Insider has 32%. So those are very good numbers, millions of visitors per month. This is figure 10.11. I would highly recommend that you look at figure 10.11 and compare the numbers to the figure 10.8 on page 670. So you'll get an idea that people are moving towards online only businesses and newspaper sites and tech blogs to read their news. So can these newspapers survive in this time period? That's a big question. There's no real straight answer to it, but they can as long as they keep focusing on content. But I personally believe that the content will continue to be there, but physical printing of newspapers is going to be something that is going to die out, because the expense of paper and the expense of giving it out to and disseminating is going to go away. And as the technology that allows us to read through electronic means in a manner that is similar or appears similar to books, which is essentially the e-ink methodology or e-ink readers, is going to get better. Now they are working on colored e-ink as well. Therefore, the physical newspapers will go away. So magazines are now coming as well in the same market. They're moving towards digital market, and tablets are extremely well suited for it. Then it talks about ebooks and online book publishing. Now we've already talked about in detail in Amazon's case bundle, but you should know that the basic the market leader in this area is Amazon, and Amazon's entire ecosystem of Amazon Kindle. So remember, it's not like Apple doesn't do books, but remember that Amazon created their Kindle devices in order to allow customers to read and access their service of Amazon Kindle books. So on Apple's side, they came about it differently. For the music industry, Apple created the iTunes in order to give the chance of their iPods to be sold. Nobody will be willing to buy the iPods unless there was some value addition, and the iTunes provided that. While in Amazon's case, the Kindle device was a means to attract people. It was a touch point. It was a way to access the Amazon Kindle books business or access it. So this is how they did it. These two digital media ecosystems, this is again proof of why I keep saying that the cases bundles are connected to this chapter. The heading which says Amazon and Apple, the new digital media ecosystems, I cannot stress enough, is extremely useful in understanding the entire argument. So the entire Amazon and Apple business talks about discusses that has been discussed in this particular portion is all about the books. So together, Amazon and Apple control about 85% of the ebook market. Amazon is the market leader in the books with 74% market share, and Apple is in a second at 11%. Barnes and Noble's Nook, which is an ebook reader as well, is barely 8% and dropping. So this is an example of why I keep saying that you need to read the chapters in order to get a better understanding of the cases if you're not able to get the understanding of the cases directly. So the ebook business, it's a business model where the prices are determined by the retailer. So obviously Amazon has been trying to push publishers in order to reduce the prices. The basic argument between Amazon and publishers has been, and there was multiple cases that have fought in the court for it, publishers want to earn more money and they are unwilling to sell physical books and ebooks at anything but the same price. While Amazon argues that ebooks should be cheaper, because obviously ebooks do not incur so many costs, while booksellers are like, if we move towards a cheaper ebooks, the people will stop buying physical books, because the effort and the amount that goes into creating a book is the same, even though these publishers are not giving higher royalties to the actual authors. This is where Amazon actually came up with its own print on demand model through Create Space, which is one of their subsidiaries, and they said that we would then give better royalty to the book buyers. And this is especially true for novels and stuff that are sold through Amazon Kindle devices. So they are now trying to actually sell ebooks more often. However, people are still buying physical books. Now there's a whole discussion here which talks about how Amazon actually sells each of its ebooks at a loss. They lose. It says here that Amazon chose to sell ebooks for about $9.99 or below the cost in order to attract more buyers to buy contents from their Kindle devices. And Amazon lost about $1 to $3 on every ebook, but they got this money back because people were buying Kindles in order to access those books. later on, if you realize, they sell their Amazon Kindles. They sold about and this is exactly what this particular chapter and this part on page 683 says, that because of this approach where Amazon was willing to sell their books, their ebooks at a loss, people bought Kindles to access them. And because they did that, 90% of all their ebook titles were therefore sold in 2010 and 11. So Amazon was able to create a monopoly of ebooks by doing just this. Publishers, of course, did not like Amazon's policy, and they realized that Amazon is now causing a devaluing of their books. But obviously, they said that Amazon was doing this, and this is predatory pricing. They're actually destroying traditional businesses of books. So in 2010, 5 of these publishers actually met with Steve Jobs secretly, and they agreed to a new pricing model called the agency model. In the agency model, the retailer is an agent and the prices are set by the manufacturer. This is what they tried to do. So they started selling books through Apple Books, and they did it at a higher price. So in return for about 30% commission, Apple agreed to this model, as did, of course, Google in the similar way, neither of whom were comfortable watching Amazon becoming a dominant business there. The agency model, of course, where the publisher decided the prices, was something that actually caused a lot of problems for Amazon. So it now had to charge whatever prices the publishers wanted, or the publishers would refuse to sell on Amazon. And that's exactly something that scared Amazon. So they started to actually, as a result, for the result of this agency model, Amazon's prices on ebooks had to be increased in order to, accept the publisher's terms. So the publishers were like, if you don't sell our books at a certain price that we want, we will go to your rivals and sell them there. So, and this is how the market share for Amazon fell to about 60% in 2012. So Apple and Google and Barnes & Noble and the 5 publishers were, of course, very happy about this. But the Justice Department of the US did not like it. So they sued the 5 publishers and Apple for fixing the prices, because this is against the competition laws. So all 5 of the publishers settled, but Apple refused to settle and asked for a trial before a judge. In 2013, the United States District Court found that Apple had been fixing prices through this agency model, and this is, of course, not acceptable. And because it was doing what is known as most favored seller, and this wasn't good. So this is how it happened. So in addition, the publishers and Apple were working and colluding, and that was not acceptable. So if publishers sold their books on Amazon, so under the agreement, the publishers, not Amazon, would determine the prices on Amazon. So if publishers sold their books on Amazon for about $9.95, then publishers would have to sell their ebooks for $9.95 on the Apple Store as well. So this is what the US court said. They said you cannot sell at a different price at Apple and a different price at Amazon. You have to sell it at the same price if you're going to settle the price. So if it's the iBook store of Apple and they sell and a bookseller sells it at $9.95, they have to sell the same book on Amazon for $9.95 as well. The court found that Apple and the book publishers would do a price competition, and they were increasing the prices, and this was against the antitrust, which is basically a set of laws that govern competitions, and it is against them. So after this happened, the ebook prices on Amazon have gone down to an average of $9.99, and a lot of older books are selling at cheaper prices. So in 2014 of August, Apple then had to pay a huge fine of $450 million for doing this fixing. So this prevents Apple from fixing the ebook prices. However, it does not solve Amazon's dominance of ebook market, and publishers will still try to make agreements with Amazon. However, Amazon went about all of this, and what it did was it has started to print its own books, and publishers can approach Amazon and do the publishing without having to deal with all the publishers. There were a lot of other cases involving other larger publishers, such as the Hachette Group and the Simon & Schuster Group, but you can read about them if you like. But at the end, of course, the ebook prices are still highly variable. It's between $9.95 and $15 to $16. However, they are decreasing overall. So yes, at the end, Amazon won this entire argument, or this battle of trying to decrease ebook prices. So the challenges of the digital ebook platform because of the rapid growth and change that is happening. The biggest fear, of course, and the biggest challenge is to convince the publishing industry to control the pricing. We've already discussed it. Amazon is the largest player in it. It has its own online store with millions and millions of books. It has its Kindle device. It has the Kindle ebook marketplace, and it provides a lot of platforms for people to actually buy them. And obviously, the other challenge is, of course, the distribution platform. So in 2014, Amazon had this Kindle Unlimited. It's a subscription service. You pay about $10, and you can read as many books as you like. So they created a subscription model for book readers, and there are about 1.4 million books available. So but this idea of creating a Netflix for books, so to speak, like a subscription service for books, is something that the publishers themselves did not like, because publishers don't like a subscription model. They obviously want to sell the books, but this is an ongoing battle. So the publishing industry has survived this whole ebook war in the beginning of Amazon and Apple, and this will continue. So there are, of course, another area is interactive books, where people are able to have audio and video, and that is another industry that is being focused upon. And I would also mention here that Amazon is still the market leader in audiobooks, which is through audible.com, which is basically where people narrate books. So Amazon is also in that market, and it's very strong. The online entertainment industry is the next section in 10.3. So it talks about these 5 industry leaders. There's video games. Now it says that video games are about 23 billion US dollars. The global number for it is about over 80 billion US dollars. So radio, music industry, television, and of course the movie industry, about 29.2 billion. So there's a lot of online entertainment in various forms. There's a lot of TV channels. There's a lot of online content providers like Netflix, ICFlix, iFlix, Hulu. Google provides its own. Amazon Prime has its own. Apple has its own movies and music. A lot of these tech giants make various partnerships with various large media conglomerates such as 20th Century, Sony and Paramount, Disney, MGM, CBS, several other such places. So the online industry is growing quite a bit. The television industry, for instance, is also growing. So if you notice, the usage of online TV and movies has been growing. If you look at figure 10.14, this is exactly what it shows. So by 2018, 2019, this will have grown to over 30 billion US dollars as an industry, online TV shows and movies. This is something that I've been predicting for Pakistan as well. So watching a television series, is something that is becoming more and more common, and people like to watch it in a single go, instead of watching each episode. So a lot of this is happening in the case of Netflix, where the entire show is released in a single go. There are several devices that have been created by a lot of tech companies to facilitate this. So you will notice that there are devices by Apple, by Google, by Amazon, as well as another company called Roku. Basically, these devices allow you to plug to actually watch something that is being accessed through the internet on your televisions. All you have to do is to buy these various devices. They get plugged in either in your HDMI ports, or your television. So say for instance Apple TV or can be plugged into your television, and you can access a lot of various online apps that provide you access to various content, for instance Netflix app or Hulu or even HBO or Showtime, and obviously other places. However, Apple TV cannot access Google Play, and Google Play is not just the Play Store for Android. In Pakistan, we don't have access to Google's music and movies and TV shows, but those are available in other countries. So Google Chromecast is where Google comes in with its own competition of the same. So they allow you to watch stuff from Google Play Store directly on your television by plugging in this small little device that's like a USB flash drive, only it gets plugged into your HDMI port. And this is how you're able to watch various things through the internet on your television, whether it be through Netflix or Hulu or HBO or ESPN or YouTube or any of the several service providers. The same is true for another device by another company called Roku, and it actually is able to stream from over 2,500 different channels and apps, which includes Netflix, Amazon Video, and Google Play, and HBO, and several others. Amazon Fire TV is a dedicated stick or device similar to Google Chromecast, but by Amazon, and specifically is focused to provide you all the content created by Amazon. So a lot of these companies are therefore coming in. Then of course there's also a focus on digital TV subscription services. So various organizations are coming up with their own services. There is live and on-demand services by several in the US. This is on table 10.4 on page 691. So there's a lot of on-demand only focus, which is something that I will talk about here. So the on-demand only is includes things like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu Plus, and another service called Noggin. All of these are where you actually demand and you pay, you get your various TV shows and movies. You pay for them on a monthly basis, or or when you want to download some specific or watch some specific content. Then there is, of course, a la carte networks such as Showtime, HBO Now, CBS All Access, or CBS Go, which is what I was talking about. These are basically services that you pay and you get whatever you want. So you basically pay a monthly fee and you're able to get services specifically. These are streaming services. This is how they work. So when you want a particular say if you want to watch Game of Thrones, you pay a monthly fee, which is pretty hefty, about $15 a month, and you'll get access to HBO. There are no ads here, so you are rid of that. So as long as you're willing to pay for it, you don't have to go through the ads. So these are some services that are allowing stuff online. Then, of course, there's feature-length movies services. You can actually access Netflix, for instance, is creating its own content these days. There's a lot of TV shows on Netflix, such as Stranger Things, the various TV shows of Marvel's TV series, and several others, original content that Netflix has been making, similar to how HBO makes its own TV shows. This is also a new trend. Instead of television networks creating content, and then selling it to different platforms like they used to earlier, these online content providers, the online streaming services, are creating their own content and allowing it. I mentioned the fact that Netflix Pakistan is about to launch a Pakistani drama that has been created by Netflix and will be shown on Netflix. So this has been happening quite a bit. Anyways, so this is essentially how they work. In the music industry, if we move to page number 699 and 700, it talks about how the music industry has changed. I need not mention that again. This has been discussed in the support study of the first case bundle. And of course, the market leader in this case is Apple's iTunes music service, which followed by Amazon's music service. And there are several other business models here as well. There is Pandora, there is Spotify, there's Rhapsody, there's Savan in the subcontinent region. There's Patari, there's Tazi, there's Best Songs.pk. There's several business models. Some of them provide online streaming service where you pay a certain amount and access unlimited music for a month or so. Google Music is another service that does this. Again, not available in Pakistan, but still Google Music does the same. That allows access to music. And then there are services where you can actually pay for each song, like the way you do on Amazon Music or through Apple's Music, where you pay for a particular song and buy it. There's also a huge industry of games. Again, that's a tremendously large industry. It's an $80 billion industry globally. It has more money than Hollywood. And there's a lot of games that are played, that are bought for free, supported by ads on both the stores of the smartphones, on Android store, which is the Google Play Store, as well as on the Apple's App Store. So you will notice a lot of games that I've downloaded. So if you go look at this particular chart on figure 10.21, you will notice that a lot of focus is going towards mobile games, and it is projected to actually be higher than people who are gaming through consoles. It doesn't mention PC games, but technically right now the largest market share belongs to people playing through mobile phones, followed by PC gamers, and then followed by console gamers. So this is something that is still going to be very, very strong. The online access of games, and the fact that the entire gaming industry is focusing more and more towards multiplayer gaming, which is basically competitive gaming with people living in different physical areas and playing online together. This is becoming more and more common, and people enjoy that. So a lot of people actually been playing that. So the kind of games that are more popular in this area are called massively multiplayer online games, or games where millions of people play together. One of the most popular ones is World of Warcraft, that we will talk about in our fifth case bundle, if I'm not wrong, which is about virtual worlds. So a lot of people like to play these games online. Some of these games are based on subscription models where you pay a certain fee to play online, and others are you just buy them once and playing online is free. But it's a walled garden, so to speak, where you can only play if you bought it legitimately. You cannot play on those servers if you've pirated the game or you've stolen it. There is a mention of several of these games on page 706, where I was mentioning about World of Warcraft. There are other categories of games and other games such as the very famous Dota, or Dota 2 as they like to call it, and there's League of Legends. There's other games that are famous in the same area, such as Call of Duty and StarCraft 2, which are extremely popular war games which are played online. So you will notice that the industry for games is extremely large. There are thousands. For instance, in the case of World of Warcraft, there are over 12.5 million players at any given time playing online. There's another game by the same company that created World of Warcraft called Overwatch that has over 20 million active players. So there's a lot of people that play games online, and this will continue to increase. This is pretty much the end of this chapter. I highly recommend that you go to these websites that were mentioned during this entire chapter discussion, because if you visit the website, you'll be able to better understand the business models, the various situations, the various payment models. So I highly recommend visiting Apple Music and Google Music and Amazon Music stores, Amazon Prime stores. If nothing else, go through the various marketing material that they have online so that you can understand the various business models. Go through Netflix, which once used to be only available in 8 or 9 countries. Now it's over 108, 119 different countries of the world. iFlix, you can find material about it on the PDCL's website, and you can look it up online about the various services that are happening in Pakistan. I would highly also recommend that you visit the various YouTube channels of the Pakistani channels that are available to us on our televisions in order to better understand how their business model is changing. I hope that this discussion on this chapter will be useful for you. Thank you.